Hey everyone, happy Thursday and welcome back to Read Aloud with Miss Godfrey. I'm just so excited to have you guys here, continuing our reading of Schooled by Korman. We are almost nearing the end of the week. We're going to be reading chapter 10 together today. Chapter 10 is from the perspective of Naomi Erlanger. If you remember from a previous chapter, Naomi Erlanger is this girl that goes to Cap's school, and she is in love with Zach Powers. If you don't remember who Zach Powers was, remember he was the kid that kind of was given the task and the responsibility to show Capricorn like his locker and kind of show him around school. And he was the one that came up with the brilliant idea to make Cap 8th grade president. So we're going to be hearing some more from Naomi Erlanger today, and let's see what happens, y'all. All right, here we go. Chapter 10, Schooled, Korman. It says, the bad news. Lena said that she didn't have the hots for Daryl or for Grant Tubman, at least not until the infection in his tongue stud cleared up. The good news is that she didn't come out and say that she was interested in Zach. But how could she not be? He was by far the coolest guy at C Average, totally adorable, and the mastermind behind making Cap Anderson 8th grade president. Although, I have to admit that I thought stealing his shoes went just a little too far. Zach did not agree. Come on, what kind of person sits in front of his locker with his eyes shut, barefoot, and mumbling in some foreign language? He was practically begging for it. I consoled myself with the fact that they weren't even shoes. They were made out of some kind of dried leaves. Technically, we did Cap a favor, because the next day he showed up in real sneakers. We're bringing him into the 21st century, Zach insisted. His eyes looked so sincere and so blue that I just had to go along with it. I couldn't help myself. I kept on writing love notes from Lorelei Lumley to slip into Cap's locker. Dear Capricorn, I waited all day and was heartbroken when you didn't come. You must have thought I meant storeroom B376 of the middle school. Silly me. I was in storeroom B376 of the high school. There is no storeroom B376 of the middle school, but I guess you already know that now. Please, please give me another chance. Meet me at... And the rest was a giant tomato soup stain. I don't know about Cap, but it would have driven me crazy. Another note contained directions to a small courtyard off the library. There was only one door and it locked as soon as it closed behind you. Poor Cap spent 2 hours in there until a custodian found him and set him free. I felt pretty awful about it, but my hands were tied. I was with Zach. We watched him from a spot on the roof, expecting him to go berserk. He never did. He called for help a few times, but mostly he spent all day in the lotus position with his new sneakers off, meditating. I could sense Zach was a little frustrated that Cap wasn't putting on more of a show. Why isn't he yelling, or crying, or at least banging on the windows, begging for someone to rescue him? To be honest, I couldn't explain it either. Cap was weird, but there was more to it than that. There was something inside him that nobody else understood. Something mysterious and strong. Not muscle strong or fighting strong, a kind of strength that gave him the self-control to meditate instead of falling apart, or to ignore what other people thought, and to find meaning in a dead bird. Remember the dead bird that Cap had in his locker and he went outside and buried? Remember that? I couldn't say that to Zach, of course, so I tried to be supportive. Look on the bright side, I offered from our vantage point on the roof. He didn't go nuts, but he was down there a really long time. Zach was not consoled. Yeah, and we were up here for a really long time. What's the point of pranking someone if the prank's on you as much as it is him? He did have a point. Cap Anderson was the ultimate 8th grade president. He fell for every gag, hook, line, and sinker, more than a Luke Simmerd or a Hugh Winkleman ever would. But there was only one problem. He wasn't reacting. You could harass him, but you just could not upset him. Even when Zach told him that he was expected to plan the entire Halloween dance, he was mellow about it. Last year, that was what put Luke over the edge. Cap just said, I've never been to a dance. He didn't even refuse to do it, but we knew he wasn't going to. That made Zach mad. We should have hung him off the wires, not just his sandals. I had only one class with Cap. It was math. He never opened his mouth, yet whenever the teacher called on him, he always came up with the answer. Zach claimed that Cap was the dumbest kid in school, but he was actually really smart. He had no friends except for maybe Hugh Winkleman, who had to be worse than anybody. Or maybe not. Those two ate lunch together every single day. It looked like Hugh did most of the talking, but that made sense. Cap was new, and surely he had questions about everything that was happening to him. He had no way of knowing that the person he was using as a guide was an even bigger outcast than he was. So he's friends with Winkleman. Big surprise, Zach sneered. Nobody normal would ever hang out with him. The stuff he does, what kid in a million years would ever want to do it with him? He had a point. Meditation wasn't big in middle school. When Cap wasn't in the lotus position in front of his locker, he was usually in the music room, strumming a guitar and singing to himself. It was always 60s music, too. I recognized the Beatles and some of the folksier stuff you hear on the classic rock stations. And every morning, he was out in the schoolyard performing these slow-motion, dance-like martial arts moves. Zach called it hippie ballet, but I thought it was kind of graceful and athletic. I asked Cap about it. It's Tai Chi, he explained. It develops balance through a blending of mental and physical energy. Yeah, but why are you doing it here, where everybody can see you? Zach demanded. Because if I do it where I live, somebody pours water on me. Wonder who that could be. Sophie. You could depend on that kind of comment from Cap. It might have made sense, but only to him. The whole thing was really starting to get on Zach's nerves. I'm gonna break this kid if it's the last thing that I do. I had to speak up at that point. Is this really necessary? Can't we just switch to Hugh Winkleman or something? Winkleman isn't president, Zach insisted. It's too late to go back and change that now. Anger did not suit Zach. His jaw was stuck out, his skin was flushed and taut. This wasn't the future boyfriend I had always envisioned for myself. We're 8th graders, he went on. This is supposed to be our year. I'm not going to give up because some hairy Sasquatch stepped through a time warp from the 60s. We went to see Lena. She was the authority when it came to spreading the word. And what Zach had in mind amounted to calling the entire 8th grade down on Cap. He was not to walk through a crowded hall without his feet being kicked out from under him. The cafeteria line was to become an obstacle course of tripping legs. He would be a living, breathing bullseye for spitballs, rubber bands, apple cores, and flying soup. It was open season on the 8th grade president, especially on the school bus, where there were no teachers, and the only rule is that anything goes. Cap's reaction? He floated through it all like he didn't even notice anyone was even messing with him. No, it went beyond that. He didn't notice that anybody was messing with him. He wasn't happy, but he didn't look unhappy either. And here's the part that I would never admit to anyone, certainly not Zach. Deep down, I was rooting for Cap to stick it all back in our faces. For sure we deserved it, especially me, because I was starting to know better. All right, guys, that's chapter 10. Oh, my goodness. So they're still being mean to Cap. They are still, raining mortal terror down on him. But Naomi's, kind of starting to come around. She's seeing that, maybe Zach isn't, who she thought he was. She kind of even suggests, hey, let's do somebody else. And Zach is not about it. And Naomi, like she said, she just ended with, she's starting to know better. she knows that she shouldn't be doing these things to Cap, but she's doing them anyway. So maybe by the end of the book, she'll come around. We'll see. All right, that is chapter 10. Thank you guys so much for joining. I just love reading along with you guys each day. You are so fun. I will catch you right back here tomorrow for chapter 11, and tomorrow will be Friday. Yay. All right, see you soon, guys. Bye.